Without a fight, there can be no victory. Now, that seems obvious, but is it so obvious that it's something we really haven't thought about? Good morning, Barry. How are you?
I'm doing well. I overslept just a little bit this morning. Didn't realize how far behind I was, but the faster I go, the less behinder I am.
All right. So you had to fight this morning to get back to the place that you were where you were supposed to begin with, right?
Yeah, indeed.
All right. So let's expound on this original thought, and then I know you want to go over to some scriptures in Kepha regarding this. But there's a saying that I heard many years ago that made an impact on me. As both of us have been in ministry for many years, you longer than I. We've heard countless sermons by other people, have preached countless sermons. It's interesting to me just how, when you really boil it down to how many things you heard that really affected you, and that you grabbed a hold of as some part of life. It's really very few things. This is one of them. Life is not a playground; it is a battleground.
That's good, Mike.
Okay, so we grow up in, we begin our life. One of the first things that many of us used to be associated with was a sandbox, or out in the background, in the backyard, making mud pies or something. I guess now there's an app for that. I don't know, but we got in the sandbox,
Yeah.
and then somebody gave us some toys, and the next thing we learned was that sandbox was not only a playground; it was a battleground because some other kid was trying to take your toys.
Indeed.
Could there be some life lessons that we need to go back to the sandbox?
You got to learn to play along, and you got to realize that everything is not about you.
Yeah. And what about this thought? That while in the sandbox, you might need to learn what is worth fighting for.
Right. Yeah. Man, my mind's running in about 15 different directions. Let me share this from the book of First Kepha here and try to go where you're going there. Kepha is writing to you and I, and he's telling us that we have this incorruptible inheritance. And he says concerning us in chapter 1, verse 5, who are protected by the power of Elohim through belief, for a deliverance ready to be delivered in the last time, to which you exult, even though for a little while, if need be, you have been grieved by manifold trials, in order that the proving of your belief, much more precious than gold that perishes and proven by fire, might be found to result in praise, respect, esteem at the revelation of Yeshua Messiah. Trials do not come to us. Tests do not come to us. There is a test, a national test being given to the entire body of Messiah in America right now. These things do not happen without a purpose. Yah knows what he's doing, and the design of the test is to reveal where we're at. If you don't take the test, you can't pass the test. You got to take the test. I used to preach it this way: if you get to a certain point and you want to bypass that point, that test, what happens is you end up going full circle back around and come to that point again to take the test. You keep coming to that test until you take it. You have to endure the test. You can't sidestep it. The interesting thing is, I believe Francis Frangipane said this many years ago, it's always an open book test.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now,
What you're talking about, going back, around to take the test again, is it's a required test. You cannot go from point A to point B without the test. That's true. That was true in the Torah when it said, you've gone around this mountain long enough. It's time to move forward. But until you decide, okay, we're going to take this, we're going to fight this, we're going to do whatever. Here we are today, a Veterans Day, a day that we honor, the people that have served in the military, past tests. I mean, I remember basic training, and there was a PT test that was there, and there was one obstacle that was just, I mean, it was the obstacle for me. I was having a difficult time with it, but there was no way that I was going to be able to go forward until I passed that. I had to move past that one, and I got, thank God I did. But to this whole concept of that we're somehow going to just move on in the playground without there being any kind of battles at all. That's not realistic. That's not a realistic life vision. That everything's just going to be given to us on a silver platter.
The Torah teaches that Yah took Israel out into the wilderness to prove what was in their heart. And it's an easy apple at the bottom of the tree to reach and grasp to understand. Yah already knew what was in their heart. So why did it need to be revealed? The people had to know. I think it's very, very easy to understand once you hear this thought. The body of Messiah and all of its manifestations through Hebrew Roots community, through church congregations, and members of Yehuda, everything that is the body, everything that belongs to him as a covenant people. We're not walking at the capability that we're capable of. There is more about us than what is currently revealed. And in order for us to be pushed a bit to know who we are, what we're capable of, how much power is available to us, what manifestations and exploits can be done, we're going to have to go through a test. I remember, Mike, when America started the first Persian Gulf War, we didn't know what was going on. I remember the newscast was stating that Saddam Hussein's Revolutionary Guard and his troops were the fourth largest army in the world, and that they had some significant capabilities. We outnumbered them in tanks and planes and so forth. But the understanding was we're not going to get out of this without a significant fight.
Yeah, they're going to fight to the death. These were like the bravest people that have ever lived in the world.
Yeah. It was a 100-day war.
Yeah.
I had an old Marine master sergeant tell me after it was all over and said and done. He said, I've been trapped in a foxhole longer than that war lasted. So, he'd been in Vietnam, he'd been in Korea, and he knew what that level of combat was. Well, I remember watching, Mike, that we were running through the desert in these tanks and so forth at blitzkrieg speed and little or no resistance. And it was like, where did they go? Mm-hmm. That wasn't as much a test as we thought. But the thing is, America dropped to its knees and prayed. Yeah. People this nation over, concerned that we were heading into a long, protracted war, prayed. When the second Persian Gulf situation arose, and we went over to Afghanistan, and Iraq was on the target list and so forth. We just had this idea. Well, we whipped them once, and we can do this again. It's not that big a deal. These are just little wild men running around in Toyota pickups, thinking that they're somebody, and we are still there.
Yeah.
But the thing is, America didn't pray. Where is the concerted prayer effort for a victory? We have relied on military muscle and ingenuity, and we're still there. We haven't relied on Yah. This test that we're in right now, if we're going to win this thing, then the body of Messiah is going to have to grow up in prayer and pray furiously and intensely and strategically. And we're going to have to walk this out, because anyway the results come through, there are going to be people mad, and they're either going to be looking for vengeance or they're going to be looking for vengeance. One way or the other, there are people who are not going to like the stand that maybe you and I have taken, and they're going to look us up, either officially from the government or unofficially with a blind eye by most in government. So one way or the other, this is going to be a fight, and it's not going to end with a declaration of a candidate being a winner. It's not going to work that way.
Back to the sandbox.
Talking about going full circle then.
Yeah, I know. It is important to learn to fight the right fight.
Yes.
The right battle.
Yes.
The right outcome. Okay, you read that verse, the verse in First Kepha, First Peter. But in order to understand that verse, we got to back up a verse. And in verse 4, it says, "To an inheritance that cannot spoil, that cannot decay, spoil, or fade, being kept for you in the heavens," or the heavenly realm. Are people still? You talk about prayer, and one of the things I said to Kathy that is, I think is a great benefit of the chaos and confusion that has broken out in the world in this year, not just this past week, but in this year, is people are praying more. But is it possible that they haven't come to the place of praying for the right thing? Now, I don't say that is a negative, because it is very difficult to hear from someone that you're not talking to. Okay.
Say that again. It's what?
It is very difficult to hear from someone that you're not talking to.
Okay.
So if people are not praying, they cannot be hearing. The very fact that we have people praying is a good thing, because maybe in the praying, in the talking to, they will be more likely to hear from. With that being said, are people praying for, continuing to pray for, an earthly solution or a heavenly inheritance? I go back to a statement.
Yeah.
Go back to a statement. I'm not looking for, in this, people did not I got a lot of people that, I post this on Facebook, and of course on Facebook, you get a lot of people that read something, but they don't think about it before they post something else. I mean, what a great idea. Before you comment on somebody's post, how about stopping for a second and trying to ask yourself, now, what is this person trying to say to me?
Right.
Novel idea. With that being said, I posted this, I said this, I'm not looking for a 4-year Band-Aid, but a 1,000-year solution.
Yeah.
Now, a friend of mine that I was talking with, I can't even give the context of who this is because, yeah, I just can't go there. But this person said, Mike, knowing you're not looking for a 4-year band aid, but a 3-nail solution.
Yeah.
Are people praying for a king or praying for the king? Is it the same sin of Israel? We just want a king. We just want a king. And in the end, okay, I'm going to give you a king. And it turned out to be King Saul, which had some problematic things there.
Yes, it did.
Are we praying? Or are we fighting the right fight? As you began today, I turned over to a verse in Matthew chapter 10, verse 28. Do not fear those who can kill the body and are powerless to kill the soul. There's this firestorm lately where we're going to switch to from Facebook to this and that and the other thing and all this kind of stuff because Facebook is watching us and whatever. I'm not going to get my life all tangled up and increase your blood pressure over that Facebook is it has some algorithms against me. Whatever. If I post something and the Almighty wants it to get to somebody, guess what? Algorithms lose 100% of the time. Okay? So are we fighting the wrong fights in the sandbox, Barry?
Mike, I know your passion. It's a passion I share for the coming kingdom. We have been praying consistently for a long period of time now. Your kingdom come and your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That's what Yeshua said to pray. I went to him in prayer last week. Matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, it's one of those stand in the shower and have a conversation type things.
One of the best. Yeah.
And
hot tub works too.
Yeah. And I'm praying about the current election results as they have been presented to us. And what I'm hearing is you're the one who asked for my kingdom to come and my will to be done.
Mm.
Now, do you want the kingdom or not? The kingdom is not going to come to us while we're walking on proverbial easy street. We're going to have to endure. Yeshua said, he who endures to the end will be saved. There is a call for perseverance, for overcoming. You can't overcome. There's nothing to overcome. And I don't know that this fight that we're in at present is going to be what's the word I'm looking for? If it's going to be the style and manifestation of the fight we're going to have in the future. Mm-hmm. Are we at current level 1 and it's going to level 5, or is this the kind of fight we're going to have from now until the kingdom comes? I don't know. I don't know how bad it can get. I don't want to imagine how bad it can get. Well, you're going to have to persevere. You mentioned Facebook. Personally, I've made a change, or I'm transitioning away from Facebook.
Yeah, and that wasn't personal against anybody. I don't care. Okay, it's just,
Yeah, but that's
fine.
That's not necessarily it's not necessarily a move toward righteousness to get off of Facebook. Yeah. It's not the more righteous. I'm just.
Yeah, don't expect for you to be, If somebody gets
My
on
apologies, folks. We have a little bit of a digital issue. Mike's internet evidently had a snafu, and he went completely frozen into digital land. And so we have restarted a little bit here. So Mike's in a different feed. So, Mike, you were saying again, you went back to your sandbox analogy. What were you
Facebook.
saying there? Can you recapture that for us?
Okay, so we're talking about getting off of Facebook, and this is not about Facebook or anything like that. But if you got off of Facebook, don't expect to be in the next volume of Fox's Book of Martyrs. I mean, it's just not that big of a deal. Okay.
Well, my thought was, if there's a kid in the sandbox with me, and every time he picks up one of my toys, he hits me over the head with it, I'm not
Yeah.
going to give him that toy again.
Yeah, I got that.
So, for those that may be looking, I'm on MeWe at the moment, and we'll give that a shot and see how that goes. But it's not a spiritual battle about Facebook. The spiritual battle is there is a prevailing of spirit around us. I had a conversation last night, and I was speaking with my sister Leanne, and we were talking about the 2016 election. We knew that we were not just praying against a certain candidate, but the spirit of Jezebel in particular that is very obviously attached to that candidate. I mean that's an easy read. You read the story of Ahab and Jezebel, and it's boom, it's right there. So we were praying not just about a person not prevailing, but a spirit not prevailing. She said, "We don't know what spirit we're dealing with. We need some revelation knowledge about what we're dealing with here in order to pray more effectively."
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference in having a conversation of yelling at someone in a house from the fence at the front of the yard and standing in the living room. And right now, I feel like that there is this large masked body standing at the fence, and we're trying to have a conversation that needs to be held in the living room. In order to get into Yah's living room, we've got to seek Him, His face, and His heart. It's the same difference between those who claim to be prophets and they're doing what the King James says not to do, peeping and muttering. They're overhearing heavenly chatter of angels and demons and other people's prayers, and they're thinking they got a prophetic word. Moshe didn't do that. He went to the throne and heard verbatim, word for word, exactly what needed to be brought back to Israel. So the perfection of our faith, the perfection of our walk, is to enable you and I to have a clearer understanding of what is actually going on and know how to then petition the Father. If I know His heart, then I know what to pray for. If I don't know His heart, the only thing I have to pray, Mike, is my heart.
Yeah, and that may be the right thing, that may not. Okay, and that's just because we're human and we're in this different realm. Let me give you in one word. Okay, very, very simple. One word, and I'll expound on this. It's something I did in my Living Torah. It's something I did in this month's message. You brought up this verse out of Matthew chapter 24, verse 13. Those who endure to the end shall be redeemed. Okay, I can tell you everything that's going on around us in the world, no matter what the subject is, really. Okay, I can give it to you one, and the word is not kingdom. Okay, surprise, surprise. I'm not going to say the word kingdom. It's the word covenant. Everything that is going on around us today is about this one thing: the covenant being established. In fact, you go to that word, and like I said, I've taught on this a couple times. Those that listen to different feeds that I do, sorry, you're going to hear it again. but the word endure there, I'm not an expert of going from, the from Greek manuscripts to Hebrew and figuring out, but I did a little bit, okay, kind of the level I do, and which is very shallow, I'm sorry to admit. But the word endure, those that endure to the end, if you go back to Hebrew and the word endure, there's a couple of different words that are translated endure in from Hebrew to English. One of the words is the same word that was given to Noah of I will establish my covenant with you. We could translate that word, that verse in Bereshit, I will endure my covenant with you. Forward that to Matthew chapter 24. Those who continue to establish my covenant to the end will be redeemed.
Mm.
This is not about an election. It's about a covenant. This is not about Antifa or this life matters or that life matters. This is about a covenant matters.
Right.
And those who continue to focus on the establishment of the covenant to the end will be redeemed.
So the kingdom will then be made up of the people who walked according to his covenant through every given situation and persevered.
Yeah, I mean, the Father has this really crazy thing of he actually has the audacity, because he can, to separate people into two groups of people. Those, I mean, there's people today that separate people into two groups of people. There's people that separate people into two groups, and those that don't separate people into two groups. Okay, that's worthless. But the Father does separate people into two groups of people: those that are in covenant, those that are out of covenant.
Right.
He says you're either Israel or the nations. You're either Israel or the Gentiles. There's no kind of well, I'm an Israeli Gentile.
No.
See, understanding that there's no hyphens in the kingdom.
Right.
You're either covenant or not. You're not going to be like an African American Southern covenant person. And I just pulled that out. Okay, that's not a racial statement. People go crazy these days when you say something. So I'm not going to be like I'm not going to be like a Southern Israeli kind of person. Okay, you're either going to be in or out, no in between. And to me, that means we either fight for the right thing or end up fighting for things that are maybe, as you say, okay, I'll use your words against you, that his eye is upon Israel. The focus of his eye is Israel. Israel being defined as the people in the land, the people being restored to the land.
Mm-hmm.
So everything outside of that is in his peripheral vision.
So one of the angles that we can take in prayer is, Father, we have to focus on this. What are the ramifications of our prayers for Israel? Well, Israel, as is presently manifested, is in two groups that are literally one group. And I don't want to try to muddy the water too much here, but we have those that are in the land, the house of Yehuda. Then you have those that are in exile, the house of Israel. It's not and praying about the election thing, it's not, Father, how does this affect Americans? The angle of prayer is, how is this going to affect the house of Israel in exile? What is it that you're seeking to do in behalf of the house of Israel in exile? And typically what we do is we Americanize everything. Every world event is filtered through American glasses. This is
Yeah.
not about America.
No.
It's not
Come
about
on.
America. It's about Israel. It's about other nations in the earth where the exiles are located. Everything, America has the ability as a nation to affect and influence the world in reality in a large way. That's not to say that we have to exist because, well, we're just too big to fail. Yah help us to get out of that arrogance. We are where we are and who we are as a nation here because of the plan of Elohim for this time and this season. When he's done with America, he will be done with America. But Israel will still stand at that day, and Am Israel, his people, both houses, will still be in the earth. Do I look for the demise of this nation, and do I, accept that this nation is going to go up in flames? I pray not.
Yeah,
I
I
pray
do
not.
too. And that may
For,
shock people, but I don't.
I have family. I have friends who live here. I live here for the moment. I don't want to live in a third world country. I pray for the benefit and the increase of this nation as long as we're in it. But that all being said, it's not about America. Our prayer life is not about this nation. It's about his kingdom. It's about the reunification of his houses. It's about the establishment of Am Israel. It's about the glory of Yeshua, our Messiah and our coming King. And how do we get from where we are to where all of that is? Trials, tests, endurance, perseverance. There's a verse here that we read earlier that we kind of glossed over. Verse 5, talking about us, it says that we're protected by the power of Elohim through belief for a deliverance ready to be revealed in the last time. We have a need of deliverance, and we have a need of being protected by his power. We need to believe him for that. We need to trust him any way that this thing goes. It's not just, is it going A or B? It can go in a lot of different directions. Ever how this thing goes, ever how the next test goes, and the one after that, and the one after that, there is a protection of his power. There is a purpose to the test. There's a refining that he is working on. I don't know about, I'm sure you've done this, Mike. You're sanding on something. You got a piece of wood in your hand, and there's a certain contour that you're looking for, and you're sanding away, and then you realize, I think I may have sanded too close. I think I may have just messed this up. Yah does not do that. He knows exactly how much to take away, how much to add. He knows exactly how to craft what it is that he's after. He is the expert craftsman.
Yeah.
Workmanship of us. He knows what he's doing. We need to trust him for that.
So I ask, we're running out of time here. I ask this: are people today praying for their comfort or for his covenant?
I don't know that you could summarize it any better than that.
If this person gets elected, then I will have my way. If this person doesn't get elected, then I'm not going to have my way. I'm going to be comfortable if this person gets elected. I mean, we could say it on both sides. So what about a prayer that is more along this line? That the Father would establish leaders, politicians, people in whatever office, that whoever it is today, that would bring his kingdom forth rapidly would be put into office.
We may not like the answer to that prayer.
And in truth, you may like the answer to the prayer because it may be, let's go ahead and say, people believe that if many of the people that listen to us believe that if Biden's like one step left of the anti-Messiah, would a Trump victory bring the kingdom sooner than a Biden victory? I don't know. I don't know the plans. I don't. It's kind of like people have come up with, well, this is the plan. Well, since when did he ask us our advice on his plan? As you said, the scripture says that we are to pray for the goodness of the land that we're in. Yeah, I pray, but there is a time in which you got to walk away. However it works out. But the last thing that I'm going to tell the Father to do, okay, think of the words that are brought forth. Well, I'm just going to tell him what to do. Yeah, that's kind of, it's like with that verse that says, and I can't remember where it's at, and I don't have the ability to get to my computer with this holding my phone here. But there was a verse that's used by prosperity teachers. It says, "Command my hand." It's like in King James, it was, "Command ye my hand." Okay. Now, that verse changes context if we put an exclamation mark at the end or a question mark.
Yeah.
Are we commanding, are we got like, I'm telling you what to do? The last thing this earth needs is for him to start listening to me. Yeah.
Wow. So my encouragement to everyone listening is pray until the Father instructs us how to pray. The goal is to seek the face of Him who sits on the throne until we find closeness to Him and hear what it is that He's wanting.
And remember, Yeshua gave us a very simple prayer. Don't complicate prayer. He gave us a very simple sample of what prayer is. If you don't know what to pray, your will be done. But remember that prayer is not about engaging Him, it's about engaging us. So if you're truly praying your will be done, expect He's going to start talking to you about things you can do to bring that forth.
Whatever you pray, you have to be willing to be a part of the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, folks, we apologize for the digital issues, but hopefully this has come across well for you. And we encourage you to keep praying, keep seeking the face of the Father, and we'll be back again next week. So, Mike and our audience, until then, shalom.
Shalom.